Have you ever wondered why the Bible seems to describe two completely different gods? One moment, a God of love and mercy, offering forgiveness and salvation. The next, a God of wrath and vengeance, commanding wars and destruction. It's as if we've been reading about two entirely separate beings. What if I told you? We have. For over 2,000 years, the truth about the Bible's God has been obscured, twisted, and even deliberately hidden. This isn't just another theological debate. It's a journey into one of the most controversial and suppressed truths in religious history. In this video, we're uncovering the secrets behind the duality of God, the ancient texts the church didn't want you to see, and the shocking revelations that could completely change how you understand God, the Bible, and even the universe itself. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see how the God we've been told to worship might not be the ultimate creator at all, and why that truth was hidden to maintain power and control for centuries. If you've ever questioned the stories you've been told, or felt there's something deeper to uncover about your spirituality, this video is for you. And hey, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning of exposing the truths they don't want you to know. Even early Christians noticed this contradiction. Some religious sects, like the Gnostics, went as far as to claim that Yahweh wasn't the true God at all. They believed Yahweh was a flawed, lesser being, a pretender to the throne. In their view, Yahweh wasn't the ultimate creator, but a false deity who enslaved humanity in ignorance and fear. Pause for a moment and reflect on that. What if the God many have worshipped throughout history wasn't the ultimate creator, but a dictator, keeping humanity under his thumb? These ideas might sound radical, but they're deeply rooted in texts like the Gospel of Thomas and the Secret Book of John. In these writings, Yahweh is depicted as a flawed being, what the Gnostics called the Demiurge. This lower god, according to Gnostic beliefs, created the material world as a trap, imprisoning souls in physical form. The real God, they argued, was far beyond Yahweh, hidden, unknowable, and existing in a realm of pure light and truth. The Gnostics' interpretation of Yahweh paints a fascinating picture. According to their belief, Yahweh wasn't the supreme creator, but a lower deity who mistakenly thought he was the ultimate God. This narrative suggests that humanity's mission was to break free from Yahweh's control and seek the higher truths of the real God. Why then don't we hear this side of the story more often? The answer lies in how religious history was shaped. Over time, the early church merged these two gods, Yahweh, the God of judgment and destruction, and the loving God of the New Testament, into one unified figure. This wasn't a theological decision, it was a political one. The church sought to maintain power by creating a singular, coherent deity for people to worship. Centuries of this narrative have blurred the lines, and anyone who dared question it was labeled a heretic. Take a moment to consider this. If Yahweh was one of many gods worshipped in ancient times, as historical evidence suggests, what does this mean for the concept of monotheism? Did the ancients truly believe in one God? Or was Yahweh simply the victor in a battle of narratives? The story becomes even more political when we examine how the Bible we know today was compiled. Why do certain books appear in the Bible while others, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, are excluded? The answer isn't divine intervention, it's politics. In 325 AD, Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea to address the fractured state of Christianity. His goal wasn't spiritual unity, but political stability. Christianity was spreading, but its many versions were causing division. Constantine needed a standardized faith to unify his empire. The council wasn't a gathering of spiritual seekers, it was a political summit. The most powerful bishops of the time decided which texts would be included in the Bible and which would be cast aside. These decisions shaped Orthodox Christianity as we know it. Texts that didn't fit the preferred narrative, those that questioned the divinity of Jesus or presented alternative views of God, were labeled heretical and suppressed. For example, the Gospel of Thomas presents Jesus as a mystical teacher, emphasizing self-knowledge and enlightenment. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene portrays her as a spiritually significant figure, even surpassing Peter in insight. But these narratives didn't align with the Church's agenda. A Jesus who empowered individuals and elevated women threatened the Church's hierarchical structure, so these texts were excluded. The Council of Nicaea didn't just define the contents of the Bible, it also established key doctrines, such as the Trinity, the idea of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as one entity. Before Nicaea, not all Christians believed in the Trinity, but after the Council, it became official dogma. The exclusion of texts was just the beginning. The Church didn't stop at shaping the Bible. It actively hunted down and destroyed alternative beliefs. The Inquisition, the Crusades, and the witch hunts were all tools used to silence dissent and maintain control. Consider the Cathars, a peaceful Christian sect in southern France during the 12th century. They believed the material world was created by a flawed God and rejected the Old Testament Yahweh. Their beliefs, closer to Gnostic ideas, challenged the Church's authority. In response, Pope Innocent III declared them heretics, launching the Albigensian Crusade. Entire communities were massacred, and Catharism was wiped out. This wasn't about protecting faith. It was about crushing a threat to the Church's power. The Inquisition was another weapon of suppression. Anyone who questioned the Church's authority risked being tortured or burned alive. Think of Giordano Bruno, a philosopher who proposed the idea of infinite universes and extraterrestrial life. For these ideas, he was executed in 1600. Even the witch hunts were a form of control. Tens of thousands of women, many of them healers or midwives, were executed for supposedly practicing witchcraft. The Church used fear to maintain its grip on society, branding independent women as agents of the devil. The Bible, as we know it, is a product of this political and ideological manipulation. It was curated to fit a specific agenda, one that prioritized control over truth. And yet, fragments of the suppressed narratives have survived. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in 1945 unearthed dozens of Gnostic texts, including the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip. These texts offer a radically different view of Jesus, God, and the nature of existence, one that emphasizes personal spiritual awakening over institutional authority. The Dead Sea Scrolls also shed light on ancient religious practices and beliefs that diverge from mainstream Christianity. These discoveries challenge the notion of a singular, infallible narrative. The discoveries of the Nag Hammadi library and the Dead Sea Scrolls were monumental because they provided us with glimpses into the suppressed and hidden history of spirituality. These texts, buried for centuries, offer insights into a broader, richer, and more diverse understanding of faith and existence than what mainstream religion has presented. Let's take the Gospel of Thomas as an example. This text isn't a narrative gospel like those of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Instead, it's a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus, sayings that emphasize personal spiritual awakening. In it, Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is inside you and it is outside you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known." These teachings focus on self-discovery and enlightenment, presenting salvation as an inward journey rather than something granted by an external authority. This directly contradicts the Church's emphasis on sin and the need for institutional mediation to achieve salvation. Then there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. This text portrays Mary Magdalene as one of Jesus' closest disciples, someone with profound spiritual insight. In one scene, Peter questions her authority, asking why Jesus would favor her over the male apostles. Mary's prominence in this text challenges the Church's patriarchal structure, which sought to downplay women's roles in early Christianity. These texts, and others like them, were excluded from the Bible not because they were false, but because they threatened the Church's control. A decentralized spirituality, where individuals found God within themselves, would have undermined the Church's authority. The Gnostics believed in a very different narrative from the one we're taught today. They held that each person had a divine spark within them, a piece of the true God, trapped in the material world. This divine spark, they taught, could be awakened through knowledge, gnosis, The Gnostic worldview turned the traditional narrative on its head. Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, wasn't the ultimate creator, but the Demiurge, a flawed being who mistakenly believed himself to be supreme. The material world, with all its suffering, was his creation, a prison designed to trap souls. According to the Gnostics, the true God was far beyond the Demiurge, unknowable, infinite, and existing in a realm of pure light. They saw Jesus not as a sacrificial savior, but as a teacher who came to reveal the truth and guide humanity out of the Demiurge's control. For example, in the Gospel of Judas, Jesus laughs at his disciples for worshiping the wrong God. He tells Judas that he alone understands the truth. The material world is a trap, and humanity's mission is to break free from it. Now let's shift to another controversial figure, Lucifer. For centuries, mainstream Christianity has depicted Lucifer as the ultimate villain, the embodiment of evil. But what if we've misunderstood his story? The name Lucifer means Lightbringer or morning star. This is a curious title for someone who's supposed to represent darkness and sin. Could it be that Lucifer's role in the biblical narrative has been misrepresented? Consider the story of the Garden of Eden. The serpent, often associated with Lucifer, offers Adam and Eve the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Before eating the fruit, they were naive and unaware of their own potential. The serpent's temptation leads them to enlightenment. They become aware of good and evil, gaining the ability to make choices for themselves. Was this act truly a fall, or was it humanity's first step towards self-awareness and independence? In many ancient traditions, figures like Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, are seen as heroes. Prometheus suffered for his rebellion, but is celebrated as a bringer of knowledge. Could Lucifer be a similar figure? The Gnostics certainly thought so. They viewed Lucifer not as evil, but as a liberator, someone who sought to free humanity from the Demiurge's oppressive rule. In this interpretation, Lucifer's rebellion wasn't about pride or malice. It was about challenging unjust authority and bringing light to the world. The church recognized the threat posed by alternative beliefs. If people believed in a false god, or if they saw Lucifer as a liberator, the entire foundation of church authority would collapse. To maintain control, the church resorted to brutal measures. The Inquisition, the Crusades, and the witch hunts weren't just about enforcing orthodoxy, they were about silencing dissent. Take the Cathars, for example. Their belief in a flawed creator god and a spiritual realm beyond the material world was deemed heretical. The Albigensian Crusade, launched in 1209, was a campaign of extermination. Entire cities were destroyed, and tens of thousands of men, women, and children were killed, all in the name of defending the true faith. The Inquisition targeted anyone who questioned church doctrine. Scholars, mystics, and ordinary people were tortured and executed for heresy. Giordano Bruno, a philosopher who proposed the existence of infinite worlds, was burned at the stake for his ideas in 1600. The witch hunts, too, were a tool of control. Women who didn't conform to societal norms, midwives, herbalists, or those who lived independently, were branded as witches and executed. These acts weren't about protecting the faith. They were about enforcing power. The Bible, as we know it, is a curated collection of texts shaped by centuries of political and ideological manipulation. But the rediscovery of suppressed texts, like the Nag Hammadi Library and the Dead Sea Scrolls, offers us an opportunity to re-examine the narratives we've been taught. What if the true God is far greater than the narrow image presented by mainstream religion? What if divinity isn't confined to a single being or text, but is a force that permeates all existence? The Gnostics believed that the divine spark was within each of us, waiting to be awakened. This idea challenges the need for external authority and invites us to seek truth for ourselves. If these suppressed texts and alternative perspectives are true, what does that mean for how we view God, humanity, and the universe? For over 2,000 years, mainstream religion has painted a picture of God as an all-powerful ruler, sitting on a throne in the heavens, dispensing blessings to the faithful and punishments to sinners. This image has shaped the spiritual and cultural fabric of the world. But what if that image is incomplete? What if God is not a singular, distant figure, but something far more profound, an essence, a force, or a consciousness that exists within and beyond everything we know? Ancient cultures around the world offer intriguing alternatives. The Sumerians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Hindus didn't see divinity as a singular being ruling over all. Instead, they saw gods as forces of nature, embodiments of the universe's many aspects, or even as multiple deities working together to maintain balance. Take the Hindus, for example, whose pantheon includes Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. These deities represent cycles of creation, preservation, and transformation, recognizing the complexity and interconnectedness of existence. Similarly, the Greeks viewed their gods as fallible, human-like figures who interacted with the world in tangible ways. These interpretations didn't diminish the divine, but expanded it, making it accessible and relatable. Contrast this with the modern monotheistic view that limits divinity to one supreme being. This approach often places God above and apart from humanity, creating a barrier between the creator and the created. The suppressed texts and alternative narratives suggest that divinity is not confined to a single form or interpretation. The Gnostics believed that the true God was unknowable, existing beyond the material world. This God didn't demand worship or obedience, but invited exploration and awakening. The idea that God could be found within each individual is a radical departure from institutional religion's teachings. If the divine spark resides in all of us, then we don't need a mediator, a church, a priest, or a set of rules to connect with God. Consider the implications of this belief. If everyone carries a piece of the divine, then humanity itself is sacred. This idea challenges hierarchical systems that place religious leaders above the laity. It also invites us to see divinity in others, fostering compassion, understanding, and unity. This view aligns with Jesus' teachings in texts like the Gospel of Thomas, where he says, "The kingdom of God is inside you, and it is outside you. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." These sayings emphasize that the divine is all around us and within us, a far cry from the idea of a distant, judgmental deity. Let's return to the story of Lucifer, the so-called adversary. If we reinterpret his rebellion as an act of enlightenment, not evil, it transforms the way we view morality and authority. In the traditional narrative, Lucifer's defiance is the ultimate sin. But what if rebellion isn't inherently wrong? What if questioning authority and seeking knowledge are essential steps toward growth and understanding? Think about the serpent in the Garden of Eden. By offering Adam and Eve the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the serpent didn't doom humanity, it awakened it. Before eating the fruit, Adam and Eve lived in ignorance, unaware of their potential. Afterward, they became conscious beings, capable of making choices and shaping their destinies. This act parallels the story of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Prometheus was punished for his defiance, but his actions empowered humanity, bringing light and knowledge. Could Lucifer, as the Lightbringer, represent a similar figure? In some Gnostic traditions, he is seen as a liberator who sought to free humanity from the Demiurge's control. The suppression of texts and beliefs wasn't just about theology, it was about control. If people could find God within themselves, they wouldn't need the church. This decentralization of spirituality threatened the church's authority, so alternative ideas had to be silenced. The witch hunts, the Inquisition, and the Crusades were all tools to maintain this control. Anyone who challenged the church's narrative was labeled a heretic and dealt with brutally. But these acts of suppression didn't just destroy ideas, they destroyed lives and communities. The Cathars, for example, were wiped out in the Albigensian Crusade, not because they posed a physical threat, but because their beliefs undermined the church's power. The question remains, if the church truly believed it had the ultimate truth, why was it so afraid of dissent? As more suppressed texts come to light, they challenge us to rethink everything we know about God, humanity, and the universe. The Nag Hammadi library, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other discoveries reveal a spiritual landscape that is far richer and more diverse than the narrow path presented by mainstream religion. These texts encourage us to look beyond the stories we've been told and seek the truth for ourselves. They invite us to question, explore, and discover the divine in new and personal ways. What if God isn't a distant figure, but an energy that flows through everything, a force that connects us to one another and to the cosmos? What if the true divine isn't about obedience and fear, but about love, understanding, and unity? The suppression of alternative views and spiritual paths by religious authorities isn't just ancient history. It has ripple effects that shape the world we live in today. The idea that the Bible as we know it is the infallible Word of God has been drilled into billions of minds, but this belief conveniently ignores the fact that the Bible was shaped, edited, and curated by human hands that sought power, not just spiritual truth. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD is a glaring example of this manipulation. The texts chosen to form the Bible were not selected because they represented divine inspiration in its purest form. They were selected because they aligned with the political and theological agenda of Emperor Constantine and the early church. Texts that encouraged personal exploration of spirituality or challenged the church's authority were excluded, labeled heretical, and hunted down. The Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene weren't just alternative perspectives. They were a direct challenge to the idea that salvation could only be achieved through the church. These texts empowered individuals, emphasizing personal spiritual awakening over obedience to external authority. That kind of empowerment was, and still is, a threat to any institution that thrives on control. The texts, buried for centuries, such as those in the Nag Hammadi library, tell us a very different story about God, Jesus, and the nature of the universe. Take the Book of Enoch, for example. This text describes a cosmic battle involving the Watchers, angels who descended to Earth, intermarried with humans, and gave birth to the Nephilim, a race of giants. Stories like these add layers of complexity to our understanding of spiritual history, showing a chaotic, multifaceted divine realm rather than a singular, omnipotent God. Why wasn't the Book of Enoch included in the Bible, even though it was quoted directly in the New Testament's Book of Jude? Because its content didn't fit the church's streamlined narrative. The same can be said for texts like the Gospel of Judas, which portrays Jesus as a figure who understood that the material world was a trap created by a false God. In this gospel, Judas isn't a villain. He's the one disciple who truly understands Jesus' mission to free humanity from the prison of the material world. These narratives force us to question everything we think we know. What if the God of the Bible isn't the ultimate divine being? What if the so-called heretical texts offer us insights that were deliberately hidden to maintain control over believers? Let's return to the story of Lucifer, the Lightbringer. His rebellion is traditionally framed as the ultimate sin, the moment when everything went wrong. But what if his actions weren't about defiance for its own sake? What if they were about liberation? Lucifer's fall from grace is often compared to Prometheus's rebellion in Greek mythology. Prometheus defied the gods to bring fire, symbolizing knowledge and power, to humanity. For this, he was punished, but he remains a symbol of enlightenment and resistance against tyranny. Could Lucifer's story be interpreted in the same light? The serpent in the Garden of Eden offered Adam and Eve the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Before this act, they were innocent but ignorant, living under God's rules without question. Afterward, they gained awareness, understanding the difference between good and evil. This knowledge came at a cost, but it also marked humanity's first step toward self-determination. The Gnostics saw Lucifer not as evil, but as a liberator. In their view, he sought to awaken humanity to the truth that the material world was a trap created by a flawed God. Lucifer's rebellion wasn't against the ultimate creator. It was against the Demiurge, the false god who demanded blind obedience. The church didn't just suppress alternative texts and beliefs, it actively hunted down those who held them. The Inquisition, the Crusades, and the witch hunts were all designed to root out dissent and maintain control. The Albigensian Crusade is one of the most chilling examples of this. The Cathars, a peaceful Christian sect in southern France, believed in a dualistic worldview similar to the Gnostics. They rejected the material world as the creation of a flawed God and emphasized spiritual purity. For this, they were declared heretics. In 1209, Pope Innocent III launched a crusade against them, resulting in the massacre of tens of thousands of men, women, and children. Entire cities were destroyed in the name of defending the faith. The Inquisition followed a similar pattern. Anyone who questioned the Church's teachings could be accused of heresy, tortured until they confessed, and then executed. This wasn't about preserving truth. It was about eliminating competition. Scholars, mystics, and even clergy members who strayed too far from orthodoxy were silenced. Giordano Bruno, a philosopher who suggested that the universe was infinite and that other worlds might harbor life, was burned at the stake in 1600. His ideas challenged the Church's authority by expanding the understanding of creation beyond the narrow biblical framework. The witch hunts, too, were a means of enforcing control. Women who practiced herbal medicine, midwifery, or simply lived outside societal norms were branded as witches and executed. These women posed no real threat, but the Church needed scapegoats to reinforce its power. The suppressed texts and stories challenge us to think differently about God, humanity, and the universe. They suggest that the divine is not confined to a single being or institution, but is something far greater, something that exists within us and all around us. The Gnostics believed that each person carried a divine spark, a piece of the true God. This idea is both empowering and liberating. It means that we don't need a mediator to connect with the divine. We can find it within ourselves through exploration, reflection, and a deeper understanding of the world. What if the true God isn't a ruler demanding obedience, but a force inviting us to awaken and grow? What if salvation isn't about submission, but about discovery and self-realization? In the modern era, rediscovering these hidden and suppressed narratives is more than just an intellectual exercise. It's a spiritual revolution. The ancient texts found in the Nag Hammadi library, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other caches of forgotten writings offer a chance to break free from millennia of control and manipulation. They challenge us to think critically about what we've been taught and inspire us to seek deeper truths. For example, the Gospel of Philip expands on the nature of spiritual connection, emphasizing the sacred union between the divine and the human. It portrays the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene in ways that were considered too provocative for inclusion in the traditional canon. These alternative narratives reveal a richness of thought and spirituality that was deliberately erased to conform to a singular, authoritative version of Christianity. If Yahweh was just one deity among many in the ancient world, what does that mean for the concept of monotheism? Evidence from early Jewish and Christian texts suggests that ancient Israelites originally worshipped multiple gods, including Yahweh, Baal, and Asherah. Over time, Yahweh emerged as the dominant figure, but this transition wasn't seamless or unanimous. The Bible itself contains remnants of this shift. Passages like the Ten Commandments state, "You shall have no other gods before me," implying the existence of other gods. The transformation from polytheism to monotheism was likely a political and cultural consolidation, not a divine revelation. This narrative of consolidation parallels the Church's efforts to unify belief systems under one God and one interpretation. By presenting Yahweh as the singular, supreme deity, the Church erased the complexities and diversity of early spiritual practices. The Gnostic texts invite us to reconsider the fundamental story of humanity. The narrative of Adam and Eve's fall in the Garden of Eden is traditionally seen as humanity's greatest mistake. But what if it was our first act of liberation? Eating from the tree of knowledge opened humanity's eyes to good and evil, granting the ability to make choices and understand the world. Rather than condemning this as a fall, Gnostics viewed it as an awakening. The serpent, often equated with Lucifer, wasn't a deceiver, but a guide, someone who encouraged humanity to seek knowledge and question authority. This interpretation shifts the focus from obedience to exploration, from sin to growth. In this light, the so-called original sin becomes the original enlightenment. It's a reframing that changes how we view ourselves, our purpose, and our relationship with the divine. For centuries, the Church has relied on fear to maintain its authority. The fear of hell, the fear of heresy, and the fear of questioning established beliefs have all been powerful tools of control. The Inquisition, the witch hunts, and the Crusades weren't just acts of violence, they were statements of power. They sent a clear message: diverge from the official narrative, and you will face severe consequences. But what if the true path to spiritual freedom lies in overcoming that fear. The Gnostics believed that awakening to the divine spark within us required courage. It meant questioning what we've been told, seeking out hidden truths, and breaking free from the systems that keep us in ignorance. What if the divine is far more expansive than the God of the Bible? Ancient cultures viewed the universe as filled with spiritual forces, energies, and deities, each playing a role in the cosmic order. From the Sumerian gods, who guided the cycles of nature, to the Hindu pantheon that embodies creation, preservation, and destruction. These traditions saw divinity as multifaceted and dynamic. Modern science echoes these ancient ideas. Quantum physics suggests that the universe is interconnected in ways we're only beginning to understand. Could the divine be the energy that flows through all things, the force that binds the cosmos together? This perspective doesn't negate the existence of God. It expands it. It invites us to see the divine not as a distant ruler, but as a presence woven into the fabric of existence. Rediscovering these forgotten texts and perspectives is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in what we do with this knowledge. How do we integrate these alternative narratives into our understanding of spirituality? How do we move beyond the fear and control that have dominated organized religion for millennia? Ask questions. Don't accept any narrative at face value. Whether it's the Bible, the Gnostic texts, or modern interpretations, question everything. The search for truth requires curiosity and critical thinking. Seek connection. Look for the divine in unexpected places, in nature, in relationships, and within yourself. Spirituality isn't confined to institutions or doctrines. It's a personal and universal experience. Embrace diversity. Recognize that there's no single path to the divine. Different cultures, traditions, and perspectives offer unique insights into the nature of existence. Embrace the richness of this diversity. Live with courage. Overcoming fear is essential to spiritual growth. Whether it's the fear of questioning established beliefs or the fear of exploring new ideas, facing these challenges head-on is the first step toward freedom. The suppressed narratives of the Gnostics, the Cathars, and other spiritual movements aren't just historical curiosities, they're invitations. They challenge us to rethink everything we've been taught about God, humanity, and the universe. They remind us that the journey to truth is messy, complex, and deeply personal. So, as we rediscover these hidden stories, let's keep asking the big questions. Let's seek out the divine not in the confines of dogma, but in the vast, mysterious expanse of existence. The truth may be buried, obscured, and suppressed, but it's still out there, waiting for those brave enough to find it. As we delve deeper into these rediscovered narratives, the question becomes not just what we believe, but why we believe it. The suppression of alternative texts and ideas was never about protecting truth. It was about controlling the masses. These lost and hidden stories shine a light on a critical truth. Spirituality was never meant to be confined to rigid structures and dogmatic rules. It's a journey, a quest for understanding that evolves as we grow. Let's reflect on the themes we've explored: the duality of God, the contrasting depictions of God in the Bible, Yahweh as a wrathful, controlling force versus the loving, forgiving God of Jesus, challenge us to question whether these portrayals truly represent the same being, or if they're reflections of a more complex spiritual reality. Gnostic insights. The Gnostics introduced the idea that humanity is trapped in a flawed material world created by the Demiurge, a lesser god who has masqueraded as the ultimate creator. Their writings, once considered heretical, offer a radically different understanding of divinity, emphasizing the divine spark within us and the need to transcend this false reality. The role of Lucifer. By reframing Lucifer as the Lightbringer, the bringer of knowledge, we challenge the binary notions of good versus evil. What if Lucifer's rebellion was an act of enlightenment, urging humanity to seek truth and freedom rather than blind obedience? The Church's actions. The violent suppression of alternative beliefs through the Inquisition, Crusades, and witch hunts was about maintaining control over spiritual narratives. The Church's fear of dissent underscores the fragility of its constructed authority. The rediscovery of hidden texts, the Hammadi library, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other ancient writings reveal a more diverse and multifaceted spiritual history than what we've been taught. These texts encourage us to seek God not through institutions but through personal exploration. The rediscovery of these suppressed truths offers us a path to reclaim spiritual freedom. It's an invitation to move beyond fear and control, to question the narratives we've been given, and to forge a deeper connection with the divine on our own terms. Rediscover the divine within. The Gnostics believed that the divine spark exists within each of us. This means that spirituality isn't something external. It's a deeply personal experience. When we stop searching for God outside of ourselves, we open the door to profound self-awareness and spiritual growth. Embrace knowledge and growth. The serpent's gift of knowledge in the Garden of Eden wasn't humanity's fall. It was our first step toward enlightenment. By seeking knowledge, both spiritual and intellectual, we honor the divine potential within us. Break free from fear. Fear has been used as a weapon to control humanity for centuries. Whether it's the fear of hell, the fear of questioning authority, or the fear of being labeled a heretic, these fears have kept us in spiritual chains. True freedom begins when we confront and overcome these fears. What if the divine isn't a ruler sitting on a throne, but a presence that flows through everything? What if God is found in the connections we share, the beauty of nature, and the mysteries of the universe? This vision of the divine isn't about obedience, it's about unity, love, and awakening. Ancient traditions around the world, long before the rise of monotheism, saw the divine as multifaceted and ever-present. They understood that spirituality isn't about conformity, but about harmony with the universe and each other. This isn't about rejecting religion, it's about expanding it. It's about moving beyond the limits of institutionalized faith and embracing a broader, richer understanding of existence. So where do we go from here? The path forward is one of exploration. It's a journey that asks us to set aside preconceived notions and dive into the unknown. It's about rediscovering the stories that were silenced, seeking the truths that were buried, and forging a spirituality that resonates with our deepest selves. This isn't a journey we take alone. By questioning, learning, and growing together, we create a world where spirituality is a shared, evolving experience. We move beyond the boundaries of dogma and step into a universe of infinite possibilities. To everyone who has followed along on this journey, thank you. Thank you for being open to these ideas, for questioning what you've been told, and for exploring a deeper understanding of God, humanity, and the universe. If this resonates with you, continue to ask questions. Dive deeper into these ancient texts and philosophies. Seek out the divine not just in Scripture, but in the world around you and within yourself. Remember, the truth isn't always found in what we've been taught. Sometimes it's hidden in the stories we've been told to ignore, in the voices that were silenced, and in the mysteries that remain to be uncovered. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and may we all find the truth wherever it may be hiding.